Okay, I think we'll hit the ground running here. Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the second session in the Halstead webinar series. This one entitled Know What Works. And today we're going to be talking about data and how to use analytics to find out what part of our marketing is working best so that we can do a whole heck of a lot more of that and less of the stuff that's lackluster and not really driving true return on investment. So that is the focus of our chat today. A little bit about me. My name is Corey Halstead. I'll be the host today for you. Why should I be talking about this stuff? I guess is the gist of this info. 25 years in the business, in the landscape and outdoor living industry. Started as a young lad, 14 years old. My uncle owned a commercial maintenance business. So at that time I was immersed into that segment of the industry. So spent quite a bit of time on the commercial side, then transferred over to the residential design build, outdoor living spaces and construction and all of that good stuff. So long time in the industry, lots of different experience in the manufacturing side, in the dealership side and the contracting side. And now at Halstead, quite a bit with associations. So entire picture of the industry, if you will. I've done quite a few of these types of workshops and sessions and speaking things for associations and software and things that you might know. Some of them highlighted there for our hardscape folks, ICPI and CMA, and National Association of Landscape Professionals and some builder trend stuff. So all kinds of good stuff that I super enjoy doing. As of about the last year or so, I've had much more time to do more of it and I'm really enjoying it. So we are, I guess, just over 9 years old at Halstead, where I am the co-owner. So Halstead Media, and most recently our recruiting focused product Crew Recruiter, where I run and own the business with my wife, Anna, where we work 100% focused on, you guessed it, the landscape, lawn care, and outdoor living industry. I guess for the focus of this talk, I'm obsessed with understanding what's working and what's not. I guess it's still the contractor brain that's with me. More foundational information about what we can gather from what we're doing so that we can be smart about it. And how do we really make it as least gray as possible? And marketing is just gray in its nature, right? It's a mix of data and science and emotion and art. So data is a really important thing that we do at Halstead, and it should be, I believe, for anybody that's really doing multi-channel marketing with any sort of substantial budget. So that is a snapshot about me. I will provide my contact information at the end. I am more than happy to have conversations after this with anybody who has questions or is interested in chatting at all. So that's me, but now let's take a little bit of what we like to do when I'm doing this thing live, which is ask questions and have folks engage during the presentation. So I guess by a show of virtual hands, I'll ask a first question here. What is the one service department you are looking to grow most in 2022? And this will help give, it'll help give some context for me in understanding who is on the call today in the session, and I can maybe steer things and be more impactful or provide more relevant information. So take a second there if you want, and you can do this anonymously by all means. That's an option there, just to get a heartbeat on who's joining us today. All right. It's like most people have chimed in with an overwhelming, oh, cool, enhancements. That's awesome. Very cool. Nice sizable add-on, something else not listed here. That's awesome. I'm interested in that. And quite a few folks with construction, design, build, outdoor living stuff. Okay. All right. Super helpful. Okay. So, so that helps me steer things. Okay, so I'm going to end that one and I will share the results with you so that you can see what I see. So, right, we got about 67% doing landscape construction, a little bit of enhancements, and then something else not here. Okay. I'll slide this guy out of the way. Okay, so that helps. All right, so certainly with that and really anything on that list, right? I think any marketer today needs to prioritize data and understand some basic data when it comes to marketing, some basic terminology and metrics, but then also understand what is actually possible now with up-to-date analytics and reporting. So it's definitely an eyes closed approach if we're just looking at maybe a conversion here and there and wondering where that came. Or most commonly what we see when folks come is we're doing marketing, something must be working because we're getting the work that we want and we're growing, but I have no idea what part of it is working. And that's really what we're going to focus on today. So today's agenda, measuring short-term health, and that's going to be some of those basic foundational elements that I was just referring to. Then we're going to move past that, that short-term health, which is really that foundational knowledge of a business owner or a leader of any business today. That's the one where we need to set the ground. We're going to move past that past vanity metrics and into things that are going to tell us a little more of the story about who is converting and where they're coming from in terms of what platform and what ad and things. Then we're going to get into the nitty gritty of it, or the magical part, I think, of this whole equation, which is mapping spend to sales. We're going to take a quick look at how you manage data, right? So if we have too much data or unactionable data, we might as well not have it at all. So how do we roll those things up into a format that we can understand with dashboards? And then I'm going to have a quick disclaimer or note, I guess, about long-term vision and how it relates to this whole data scheme of things. Okay, so what did your marketing plan involve in 2021? So that some of this talk we can make relevant again, understand what it is that you've done in the past and how you might be measuring its success. So take a second to answer those guys if you want. SEO, Google ads, paid Facebook and Instagram ads, paid LinkedIn ads for our commercial folks out there. Which may be our enhancement folks, organic social, or our direct mail for probably some of our lawn care folks, videography, photography, paid recruiting ads. How are we finding help, which is obviously a hot topic. That was the topic of our first webinar, recruiting in 2022, which I think I will be doing an encore version of later in February. And I don't do marketing. I'm too busy to keep up anyway. All right, looks like we got basically everybody. So I'll end that guy. And I will share. So lots of people doing SEO, a couple doing paid social ads. I think if we understand the reach of paid social and actually how to do it properly, that number should be 100%, in my opinion, based on our industry. Organic social posting, photography and videography, a little bit there. 3 on paid recruiting in terms of Facebook ads. Fantastic. So pretty well split. Nobody doing our direct mail, which actually makes sense because we don't have the lawn care folks. And organic search being the leader. So fantastic. Okay, so that's all super relevant for what we're talking about here. Let's dive into measuring some of those efforts and see how you're doing that now versus how you can be doing it with all of the proper data and analytics in place. So measuring short-term health of our foundational marketing spend, right? We certainly need to, as modern marketers, be justifiers of ROI. This is huge for me and for Halstead in turn. If we don't know if it's working, then why the heck would we continue to spend our precious budget on it? That could certainly go to other things. So yes, we need to be an experimenter as well, which is something we do a lot, and something that sets proper digital marketing in a totally different bucket from more traditional marketing, right? We can constantly test, we can constantly see something new might work better, but we have to have the data in place to understand that. So foundationally speaking, there's a roadmap. Okay, so this is something that a lot of folks struggle with. No matter what the campaign or platform that we're using, paid social, paid search, mainly those two are big ones for this, but there's a process in this, right? There's a roadmap. We first need to launch the ads. So when you first want to start these things, we need to get the ads live, get the audiences created, get the ads live, and launch them. We need to collect the data that happens from after we launch, right? So this is the process that should be being used. There can be no real judgments or takeaways from ads that have been running for a day, folks, right? Or that have been running for a week even, right? So in the beginning, we need to launch these and we need to let the people come see, flood the campaigns with all of the impressions and the clicks and the engagements and who's engaging. We're doing audience tests, we're doing ad tests, we're doing copy tests, right? In this stage. So we collect that data and then we need to analyze and adjust, right? So we need to take that data, understand which campaigns, which ad sets, which particular ads, which audiences are working, are producing clicks and traffic and engagement, and which are not. And then we can adjust our campaigns based on that data, right? Then we do that again 2 or 3 times before we can really understand a dialed in campaign, because all along that process, which takes about 6 weeks, it takes that long to get things dialed in, right? And at Halstead, we're starting ahead of the game because this is all we do all day long in the industry. So from there, we can optimize the ads and the creative and the copy because we understand what is driving results, right? And then we can connect the dots back to conversions and sale, right? Which I think is what we're all after. So there's a definite process. This stuff does not happen overnight. So if you work with a current agency or maybe in-house or you're looking to, the time that we do a lot of onboarding for the year ahead is the end of the previous one, because all of these systems are being designed and launched and analyzed and flooded with data and then optimized so that when it's go time, they're ready to rock and roll, right? The great majority is 12 months a year now. It's a growing trend in the industry. So the whole 6 months and then turn the ads off thing is pretty much gone. But even if you're doing a new campaign or a new focus for the next year, that stuff all takes time to optimize. So that's the overall roadmap of what we're talking about. But in terms of understanding the foundational success metrics of these things, it's really called vanity metrics. A lot of times we say checking the vitals, and these things are critical at the start, right? We're going to look at the big 3 here, but we're talking about things like click-through rates and impressions. These are very foundational, not very telling the entire story type metrics. But in the beginning, it's all you have, right? Because in that first stage, we've launched the ads and we need to flood it with data. So we need to understand which ads are engaging and resonating with your audience and which ones are getting clicks. So this is how we do that. This is the heartbeat in the beginning of any campaign, right? But when you think about even doing just that across maybe all of these efforts that we just saw in the poll, right? SEO, Google Ads, paid social, recruiting ads, organic social, all of these efforts can seem very daunting and overwhelming to understand what is working and what is not. So for the purpose of this talk, but also for the purpose of beginning a 1.0 a solid data and analytics plan for your business, I recommend focusing on organic search, and paid social. This is the core of a digital marketing plan. These things are all intertwined and working together. So when Mrs. Jones clicks on a paid search ad, she's being retargeted across paid social. When she clicks on a search ad, organic search listing, she's being retargeted, right? So these are the big 3 working in tandem in every one of our systems. And it's really the best place to start. If you understand these 3, then you will be ahead of the game and ready to take the next step, right? You can only see 5 steps ahead, not 25. So this is the first 5 steps. Understand SEO, paid search, and paid social. So the key metrics that you should be looking at and be in tuned with on a regular basis, at least in the beginning of a campaign. Whether or not, folks, this is internal efforts, external with a partner, a combination of both, doesn't so much matter. These are the things that are tracked on a regular basis. So for SEO, we're looking at rankings, right? We understand which keywords we're going after. Maybe these are patio installation or landscape design, whatever they may be for our folks that are focused on design build. These are keywords that get teamed up with a location, because every bit of everybody on this call today and any session that I'll probably run for a very long time is focused only on local SEO. It does not matter if you rank in California, if you are a business in New York. Trust me, that's not going to help anybody. So you need to focus 100% of your efforts in ranking in the top service areas that you want to dominate. So those core keywords, right? Patio installation in X city or landscape design in X city. These are just examples. That is a keyword combination that we are then entering into your piece of software that should be tracking your efforts. There are many of them on the market. As long as one of them is in action, you are ahead of the game, and that's what you should be doing. We are tracking the rankings of where each of those keyword combinations ranks, where it ranks currently at the start of the effort, where it ranks weekly. You can see here, it shows where it's ranking. It shows what has changed over the last period of time. In this case, 60 days. You can see up at the top right of that filter there. It has changed to, it's gone down to, and in Bing, it's gone up to. I can tell you that, yes, we report on and we focus on Bing, but if you just spend all of your efforts on Google, I think you'll be just fine. So rankings, understanding where they are and where they are going and how they are changing. Traffic, certainly, because there is absolutely a possibility, and this happens often. We see when people first come to us, maybe they rank for a ton of things in their opinion, and then you can see that they actually do, but it is not driving clicks and traffic, and then therefore is not driving any conversions or sales. So this stuff is very systematic, very data driven. You need to understand the keywords that are going to drive traffic to the website. So in tandem with the increased rankings, we should obviously and very clearly and very importantly be seeing an increase in the right kind of traffic. I specify right kind of traffic because there's even cases where perhaps we ranked for a whole bunch of things, but it was the wrong traffic, or maybe the company was changing their target persona based on the type of job that they want to do. But it has to drive the right traffic, and there should be a correlation between the two. Those things are generally coming from Google Analytics in terms of traffic. So that stuff should be rolled up into your reporting, however you're seeing that or accessing that traffic number. And then domain authority is basically a score that is given to a website or to a domain and its accompanying website. How authoritative and powerful, essentially, is that website going to be or is currently? So SEO's job is to also watch that and watch that increase. As that domain authority goes up, your rankings will jump substantially. So, important thing to watch. So that's the vanity metrics, or the short-term health, foundational health for our SEO campaigns. However you get that data, and we'll look at different ways to get that data a little bit later in the session. Then we move on to a paid side, so paid search with Google Ads. This is a snapshot of maybe what a dashboard would look like, right, for us. So we're talking impressions, clicks and click-through rate, cost per click or CPC, quality score, and conversions, which is in quotes. So things that, remember when I was saying that the foundational part of this talk is going to be information that every business owner should know and should understand, right? This is the stuff that I'm talking about. This goes along with, now for me, just as much as you understand your numbers side of your business, profitability and sales and all of that stuff at the heartbeat, this information is stuff that every business owner needs to know in 2022. It's just foundational. This is not advanced digital marketing knowledge. This is, how can I understand what my agency is telling me about? How can I have proper conversations around that? Or how can I understand my internal efforts, whatever it may be. So impressions is the amount of times the ad has been seen. Clicks is how many clicks, how many people have clicked on it out of those people that have seen it, and therefore your CTR or click-through rate, right? So impressions divided by clicks gives us how many, what is our rate of click in 100 people see it, 5 people have clicked on it, that's the number that's going to get us our CTR. Our cost per click, what are we paying for every single click that comes in? This is seasonal. Google Ads is an auction, right? So it ebbs and flows with the demand and the seasonality. So especially with landscaping and outdoor living, a keyword that is related to lawn care or outdoor living in March, April, and May is going to cost a lot more per click than a keyword in December. Very important to know, right? On upwards of $10 per click can very easily be a cost in those thick seasons. Just one more reason to continuously advertise year round, because less people are in the auction and the times when your competitors are not doing that because they haven't figured out that that's actually how you win. So you're going to take advantage in those off seasons, get lower cost per clicks and more click volume from the people that are there. Quality score is a score that Google gives you that is determined by quite a few different things, but the simple way to look at that is how good is your ad and how well suited is it for your audience and landing page. So just what is the quality score? That quality score, it influences quite a bit of things, and certainly your cost per click will be a better rate if your quality score is doing good. And then conversions, which is going to be in quotes for the first part of this talk. Conversions is somebody might have filled out a form or they might have called. Okay, but we know nothing more about that conversion than that. It is also not the most solid data coming from the platform itself, because there's a lot of variables in the data, but that is one metric, of course, that you want to understand on the Google Ads platform side of the data. And then you will want to match that up to what we talk about later in the conversation. So when we talk about Google Ads, those are our foundational things that we should be looking at. When we talk about paid social, so Facebook, Instagram, and for our commercial folks, LinkedIn, impressions are the same, right? Click-through rates, cost per click. So these are familiar terms. Cost per CPMs is cost per 1,000 people reach. So for my old school advertisers that did print and things like that, this is what we're understanding there. Frequency, right? So frequency is a little different on Facebook and Instagram and social ads. Frequency is an important metric for driving return. So frequency is how many times is each person on average seeing an ad that I am running actively. So as we know, as we learn more about marketing and do more marketing, people need to see and be reminded of what you are trying to tell them, sell them, communicate with them, influence them about many times over before they make a decision. That is more true today than ever before because we are so fragmented across platforms and so busy and so distracted with all of our devices. So the frequency rate needs to be high enough, right? We see a lot of times when people come to us, they're operating on a frequency rate of less than 1%. Well, I don't know about you, but I think the person that's going to act whatever we're trying to do with them needs to see that ad quite a bit more than that. And it's a frequency rate based over a period of time. So as an advertiser who understands social ads, you can set the frequency and it's directly related to budget most times and audience size. But that is an important one. How many times are we showing each person the message that we want? Relevancy score is more back to quality score kind of, right? So how relevant is my ad and my messaging and my creative and my copy? How relevant is all of that stuff to the audience that I am targeting it to show it to? Is my audience, is the person I'm showing my stuff to liking it, essentially? Not actually like with a click of a like button, but are they engaging? Are they finding it relevant? And then again, our conversions, which is even more gray now on the Facebook platform than ever because of the data stuff that is happening with iOS or has happened with iOS and continuously changes. Conversions are more difficult to track on Facebook, on the Facebook ad engine now, really more than ever, perhaps. But it's okay because as long as you have the other things we're going to talk about in place today, there is a way to actually get to the information that you need. But still, if we're looking across campaigns, we want to be making sure that we have a conversion tracking enabled and understanding each campaign and each ad and its conversions that are associated with it. So a lot of the same things, a couple of different between Google Ads and Facebook ads. Again, these are the metrics that as an advertiser with active campaigns on these platforms and these strategies, you should be understanding consistently. Okay. All right. So that is our primer, if you will, right? Every owner, every leadership, everybody that's engaged in the business's growth or sustainability needs to understand those metrics. Now we move past this a little bit in the next couple sections of the talk, and we start to get into stuff that will really be able to influence your business, starting with how do we move past those metrics that we just covered, and why the heck should you really care to do that anyway, right? Most companies are only tracking click-through rates. My agency's telling me I should just look at that and look how many clicks I got. It's amazing. Look at that. Everything is up and to the right. And then you say, hang on a second, I don't have the sales or the lead or the actual real live human leads to back that up, which is basically the case that happens in a lot of agencies that are not producing results. And then you understand, hey, maybe I can get a little deeper, right? So vanity metrics are really just scratching the surface, right? These click-through rates, these conversions that aren't actual people that we can get reported on, they do not paint the entire picture by far, right? Because last time I checked, the goal is to get a closed sale. So they are incredibly unclear about actual return on investment. I spent $100. What did I get for that $100? Which is how we need to think about our marketing strategy and our marketing spend. And they don't prove if it's really working or not, right? Again, it gives us a heartbeat, but it doesn't tell us Mrs. Jones clicked on this, did that, and did this. So we have to move past those numbers, and we have to be able to use our data somehow, some way to influence our actions, right? Whatever those actions may be. And I think it's important to say that whatever those actions might be, a lot of times our purpose or our KPIs, our key performance indicators are not necessarily more growth. They are a particular type of client. They are a particular type size of job. They are very often now a particular type of an employee candidate with all the recruiting work that's happening, right? So whatever the goal is, marketing can be used to reach that goal. One of which that we spend a lot of time on now, I guess, just because we're fortunate to work with smart leading companies, is that we love to use marketing to pre-qualify leads that are coming in and allow the company to prune out certain types of clients that they maybe don't want to work with or they're less profitable on, and replace them with customers that they want, right? So when you look at marketing that way, it's much more about lead. It's much less about lead, and more about shaping the business's direction holistically, right? So that's an important thing, I think, to know. So as we move past vanity metrics, maybe the first next step that folks look at is what's called a UTM, right? It's a tracking metric, I believe, Orchin tracking metric, doesn't matter. UTMs are basically a pretty simple string of URL that's put, a little tracking code, essentially, if you will, that's put on the back of a URL, right? So maybe you have a piece of content like a blog article on your website or a landing page on your website. And you can add this UTM to the back of that, and you can start to understand some more about what is happening. Now, this has gone very far in terms of advancements over the last even 5 or 6 years. This used to be a very difficult process to do, but now it's really pretty much ingrained in a lot of the platforms. Facebook has this kind of built in. Websites have this a little bit built into their forms sometimes, at least much easier to achieve it there. So this is sort of like a 1.5 step, right? You're not quite all the way there, but this is certainly going to tell you a lot more than what you were knowing before, right? What is it going to tell us? It's going to tell us the source. So you can see here, there's different parameters that you can use with these tracking codes, and they can tell us things like the source or the campaign that they came from, or what content they were engaging with, right? And when they did it, what term. So these types of more information, it's going to tell us more about what's happening, more of the story. And when you look at these things, they're often tracked. Maybe there's a goal set in Google Analytics to say, okay, let me see when somebody lands on this piece of particular content that I think is good. I want to know where they came from, i.e., did they see it from a Facebook ad, or did they see it after clicking on a Google ad? I want to know when they did that. I want to know what campaign it was a part of if I'm talking about social ads, right? So not to get too complicated here, just to understand really that there are ways to kind of gradually increase your data setup, if you will. It's not easy, but it's also not difficult, right? So the data is stripped out and you can really understand ROI a little bit better in terms of what paid social, for instance, you're running. So that's sort of foundational metrics, one step up in UTMs or understanding how to track sources. But how are you tracking the sources for your leads now? Is our next sort of show of hands question here. So I'll launch this one so we can see. How do you track the source of your new leads coming in now, right? How do you, we ask each potential customer, very common one, how they found us. We really don't. We ask sometimes, but not always. We don't have a great system in place, right? Another very common one, an understandable one based on all of the hats that we need to wear in the landscape business. We use basic analytics to gauge on some well-performing sources. So maybe that's we go to Google Analytics sometimes and we look at what source is driving some traffic. Maybe I see that Facebook is driving a lot of traffic to the website, but I don't see maybe leads there. And then we use call and form tracking as our last option to see what we're doing there. So I'll give folks a second there to chime in. All right. So it looks like most have come in. So we have to end this guy and then share. So about 40% is asking each potential customer. And then another 40 is asking sometimes, but don't really have a system. So this is exactly what I see when I speak with friends and colleagues in the industry, when I speak with consultants on the numbers and ops side of the business, when I speak to clients that come in to us at Halstead newly, this is exactly what I see. I challenge this. I challenge you to challenge that asking somebody in 2022 where they found you is a very loaded question. And I can tell you that most times when we match the data up to that, it does not match the story that they tell you. The reason this is because it's pretty understandable, right? There is a lot of different platforms that they can see you, especially if you have a well-rounded marketing system where you're running paid social, paid search, organic, all of these things. There's a lot of places they could have seen you. They also could have seen your wrapped truck at the neighborhood over. They could have spoke to Mrs. Jones, who you did a job for 2 years ago. They could have seen any number of these things, but they will never remember really, or rarely, I should say, where they saw you first, which is the thing that you're trying to get to, right? It's called first touch attribution. And it's how did they find you? How did they first come into your ecosystem at XYZ Landscaping, right? That's the information that they most likely will not know, because the chances are much more likely that they saw your truck down the road. Then they went and did a Google search. They clicked on a Google ad. They went to the website. Their kid called. They ran off. Then the next time they went to a Facebook ad because you were retargeting them. They clicked in the Facebook ad, converted, and then they tell you that they saw you on a Facebook ad. But we know that that's not true, and that's not actual marketing return on investment. Yes, it's great that they found you through one of those sources, but to understand more is even more gold. So now we look at how we can get past that, asking that question, or not having a proper system, or using some analytics, but not having a total system to map spend to sales, which is my undying obsession in the work that I do. So how do we do it? How do we understand if I spend $1,000 here, what did it bring me, not just in the short term, midterm, but also in the long term, which is the only vision I have learned that works with marketing. If we do not have a long-term vision, we have a problem. But how we do it is we dig deeper with technology, with data, and with call and form tracking. So first up, we need to understand that we are going to go beyond the conversions, quote, quote, that we saw on those different platforms, right? We're going to go past the conversion on the form. We're going to go past the conversion that says Facebook says you have 2 of, but doesn't really tell you what the heck that is. We're going past that now. And we're going to track our calls from both online and offline sources, and we're going to pinpoint our most effective marketing efforts, which I think is what everybody wants to do if you've joined this call. So this is form tracking, an example of what a dashboard might look like. Ours are completely integrated into our Halstead dashboard, but nonetheless, the data is there. And basically, you can see that every tracking number, there are dynamic tracking phone numbers that are replaced on your marketing assets, whether it's a website or a paid social ad or whatever. And when somebody calls that, it is tracked back to the source that they found you. So Mrs. Jones that called for a design build project, you just closed them. Fast forward 4 weeks, you closed them, and they're on the schedule for probably like 2029 based on how booked out everybody is. You can go back and say, oh, look at that. She came from a Facebook ad, or she came from a Google paid ad, or maybe she came from a spring mailer, which how the heck do you do that? You can also track offline campaigns with this as well. So this is very common with like my lawn care guys and gals that do a lot of direct mail and EDDM. So when they do that, we provide them a separate tracking phone number, a separate tracking URL, and we can understand also right within one dashboard is your digital and your analog efforts, how many actual calls, how many actual form submissions came from that direct mail piece that you mailed out last month. So this is call tracking. In my opinion, there is zero reason for anybody not to have it on their efforts. If you're spending any money, really, any substantial amount of money, well, that's not true. Any substantial amount of money for a sustained effort, there is zero reason not to have it. It is not a high cost ticket item, but it tells a whole ton of what is happening in the story. Okay, so that's step one about how we map spend to sales. We need to know who's calling us, right? These calls are recorded, so you get all kinds of other cool things that happen with it, right? You can understand, was it a first-time caller? You can understand, was the call answered, which is important to a lot of folks, obviously. And then we'll look at it in a second how it's even going past that. But most recently, that's kind of been there for a while. It used to suck in how they did it. So I didn't love it years ago, but now it is really solid. It's really worth changing and using dynamic numbers, and it's a really solid product. But there used to be sort of a workaround on the form side, right? So when I talk about form, this is people coming to your website and filling out a contact form. That used to be more convoluted, but now it has actually come a long way most recently, actually. So the same sort of thing that's happening on the calls, we can do on the forms now, right? So if you see here, you see that Dudley came in on this particular page, right? On the screenshot on the left here, on January 18th, he came into this URL. It tells you the page and the form that they converted on, and it tells you the source in which they came from. So he clicked on a Google paid ad, he landed on this form and submitted it. We should all, like, I don't know, celebrate and do whatever if that happens, because that is really not how the world works right there. It's usually that if you go one step over, which I've cut out just for simplicity's sake, that he's done many things before he's filled out that form. He's been researching you in particular on the design build side for over a month. The stat we call is 79 days rule. 79 days online rule. So stats tell you that they're researching for in excess of 79 days for a project. So chances are they've seen you many different places, but that is one. And you can understand there based on reporting really cool things, right? So you can understand the attribution, of course, where is it coming from? You can run reports in terms of like leads by source. So I can say, okay, in the last 30 days, where did my leads come from? And it'll be this beautiful pie chart that says 24 came from this and 20 came from that. And I can also get even down one step further for our more advanced and bigger spend folks is leads by campaign. So I can understand even within, say, Facebook ads, I want to know more than just Facebook ads. I want to know what particular campaign and ad. You can go down that next step as well. So you can see that this is how things work in terms of actually understanding, right? Because when we get this data, we can understand, oh man, I can tell my software is telling me the entire story and I can map spend to sales, meaning that this particular thing would be beautiful, this chart, and it is beautiful if maybe we were an e-com company, but Obviously, the landscape and outdoor living space a little bit more messy and less digital than that. So this is a little bit of a manual process for our clients and folks that want to do it, but it works really, really well. You can still say, okay, in 2021 Q3, I spent $5,000 on Facebook ads, and I got, let me go to my sales team, match up the leads. What was my close? Okay, here's my closed amount. I can talk to you about that. Now, that's a really hyper condensed version of how you would want to do that. It would be much more longer term vision than you want to with that. But the point is the same. I can match up Mrs. Jones, who just bought a $150,000 backyard, and I can understand how she's coming into my ecosystem. And this is really understanding marketing return on investment, right? So as you can tell, maybe from even just the folks on the call in terms of the survey, but I can tell you that many are not doing this, and it boggles my mind to the fullest. Because if we really want to know what's working, we can do more of it and drive more of those results. And the point here is that while many in the industry are not doing this, of course, other industries have been doing it for years. And if we don't do it, then we're already kind of behind, because this is just the beginning in terms of where we're at. So this possibilities here are already far ahead using AI. Do I recommend that everybody jumps on and starts to do this part of it right now? Absolutely not. I include this slide just as a sanity check for where we're at and what we should be doing in terms of pushing our industry and our marketing forward, right? So folks are already using AI to transcribe the calls and then understand what they're talking about in this message or this recording, and then route them to a particular salesperson based on what's in there and qualify. So I can set up rules and say, okay, here are my 10 tag words that I want to know, my keywords. Did they mention patio, outdoor living? Did they mention lawn care? Did they mention enhancements? And the system will automatically tag them with that, and it can spit us directly into our CRM, and we can qualify and categorize and score calls without doing anything, right? And then we can also start to understand, oh, how do our consumers, we have data to understand how our consumers think about things and communicate things. So as we leave more of the process away from the kitchen table and more digital, which is what's happening, not just since COVID, but already in the industry that was happening, how do we understand more about our clients just as if we were in front of them like we used to be? So that is tracking return on investment at its fullest. Okay, so where are you currently reviewing the marketing data? So I know that we have a mix there of how you're getting the data, right? But how are you reviewing this data in terms of understanding the action item, right? So are you receiving reports about your marketing via email? Are you, do you have a marketing dashboard that you can log into and see? I don't really know, because I don't review things as regularly as I should. I need a process for this. And I don't do marketing. Remember, I told you that already, which I don't think we had anybody of. So that's fantastic. So yeah, just basically, how are you checking in on these things? I guess I should have put maybe that there was some type of a meeting that had no reporting in there as well, but I think we get the idea there. All right. Give me a few minutes for folks to chime in. Okay, cool. So I'll get another. So one person has a dashboard. Fantastic. Don't really review things as regularly as possible. I need a better process is the far and away winner. And then there's one, which is also sort of the next step, I think, is to use the individual platforms, kind of like we talked about in the beginning, right, with the foundational data, to look at the data there. So I go to Facebook to understand Facebook. I go to Instagram to understand Instagram, or I don't really have a system, are the clear far aways. And then we have actually two that have a dashboard. Fantastic. Okay. So this is the trick, right? After we get all this data and we're collecting all of this data, we need to understand how to make it actionable, because the worst thing that can happen or not the worst. I guess it's better to have data than not. But a bad thing that can happen is that it's not actionable. There's too much data everywhere. I don't know what it's trying to tell me. And this is what's happening in like the big businesses of the world, right? How do you make it so that it's digestible and you can make actual decisions off of it? So how you do that, in our opinion, and how I think that the landscape industry should do it, is through dashboards. So a lot of folks have dashboards more on the ops side of things, right? So maybe they have a team dashboard and an ops dashboard and those kind, or a financial dashboard. So same idea here. It's just sort of like your marketing control, your NASA center for everything that you're spending money on in your campaign. So everything is in one place. Right. So these are screenshots of our particular dashboard. The purpose of these talks is not to do that. I really don't care how you get your dashboard or where it comes from. I just want the industry to get better and to have these things that we should have. So static reporting versus control, which actually nobody said that they received the reports via email. That's a very common one with working with other agencies, is a reported static report. We used to do that years ago, where the person that's doing the marketing is kind of going to all of these places, summing it up and putting it into a report. The problem there is that, of course, data can be manipulated to tell a story, right? So this is more of a control center where everything is there. Increased transparency is kind of that point I'm talking about, right? This is exactly what's happening without filtering in every aspect of your campaign. So if I can roll up reporting into a static report, I can maybe tweak some things and tell a story, only the part of the story that I want to tell. This tells the entire story. The thing that it does is it connects all of your channels, all of your effort, and basically gives you a real-time 24/7 dashboard. So source of data, I should say. So Facebook ads, Instagram ads, everything that you're running, search, social, organic, email marketing, call informed tracking, as you can see down the side of this dashboard here on the left-hand side of your screen. You'll see SEO, analytics, social, ads, call tracking, email, all of this stuff local for your Google My Business is rolled up into this one particular source, which, gives you what? It gives you a place that you can go quickly and in real time, and you can filter this thing based on any time parameter that you want, any campaign. It's built so that you can click down. If I go back, actually, you can see here is your call rail that we talked about right on the screen here. You can see the actual names and where they came from. But if you were to click into like social ads, you can go all the way down to the individual ad that is live and see how many impressions it got, all in real time. So it's basically taking all of those things that we talked about, bringing them into one source, including the call informed tracking in there so that you have the end of the story and the completion of the story as well. So that is the nitty gritty. One note, I should say, and I mentioned this earlier, is that I can promise you after hundreds of case studies of doing this, that long-term vision is the only vision that wins in terms of marketing. And when we talk about long-term vision, we need to talk about brand. And the reason that this is in here is because a lot of times all of this data talk can take over. And brand sometimes gets a little lost in the mix, right? So there is 100% a possibility that we would recommend that a particular ad continue to run, even though it has a little less performing data. Maybe the click-through rate isn't as good, but we understand and we believe in the fact that this is building brand and it's saying the right things about you. We would maybe recommend to keep that going on a lower budget, right? As a trickle brand campaign. So the idea here is that we need to balance direct response, which is like the click-throughs and the conversions and all of this stuff, like an exact response, versus brand stuff, which is the long game, right? And we need to create the balance for consistent marketing spend versus investment, right? So if we turn off our ads, paid ads, then we stop showing those ads and nothing is there. We cannot turn off our brand if it's strong. It will continue to power you. So this is one that's very interesting right now, I think, because with such surge in the industry in terms of demand, most folks cannot keep up with the demand. Anybody who has done sort of a solid job of marketing in the past cannot keep up with the demand. So what do? This is the exact time that you invest in things that you will need when this period of time ends, which it most certainly will. It's not if, it's when, right? So when that thing starts to come down a little bit off this crazy high curve, we are going to want things like strong brands, great video content, all of those things that we're going to have while times are good. So we need to balance our brand awareness and our direct response and make sure that we have a complete strategy across the entire thing. So that is, concludes today's presentation on knowing what works. I do believe that